Hello, my name is Paul Marchbanks, and this is Digging in the Dirt with another entry on representations of disability in Hollywood films. Today I'm going to prepare us to watch M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable from the year 2000. Most comic book aficionados trace the United States' current love of superheroes to the advent of Superman in Action Comics #1 back in 1938. An extraterrestrial destined to join Wonder Woman and other godlike heroes in the Justice League in the 1960s. That same decade, Marvel Comics fleshed out the new mythology with alternative, more relatable heroes like the Fantastic Four, characters whose daily lives out of costume more closely resembled those of the reader. Despite the increasingly relatable struggles dramatized by comic writers and artists, however, these tales remained squarely within the purview of teenagers and comic book collectors until the turn of the century, when special effects finally caught up with our imaginations. Bryan Singer's X-Men and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man introduced the masses to the most popular superheroes in comics at the time. And when a film about Iron Man, a little-known hero, crushed the box office in 2010, there was no turning back. I have to say, I for one got a huge kick out of watching my nerdy passion get picked up by an enthusiastic public. A few of us had watched TV shows about the Incredible Hulk and Wonder Woman in the 70s, alongside Richard Donner's first two Superman films, and Tim Burton's Batman did make a notable impression as I graduated high school. In the 2010s, however, everyone seemed to be obsessed with comic films. For good or ill, they totally changed the filmmaking landscape. But that's a subject for another time. Today, whether you prefer crowd-pleasing action films by Marvel and DC, quirky miniseries like The Umbrella Academy, or something in between, you can find something to your liking. Of course, our fascination with powered protagonists has much older origins than the modern superhero. The 19th century popularized shape-changing vampires who exert mind control, ultra-strong animal-human hybrids, and a creature woven from corpses who can withstand Arctic temperatures and scale glaciers in a flash. Here's one of my favorite lesser-known examples: the description of a plague survivor in Mary Shelley's The Last Man, which anticipates the description of a certain Kryptonian. My body, late the heavy weight that bound me to the tomb, was exuberant with health. Mere common exercises were insufficient for my reviving strength. Methought I could emulate the speed of the racehorse, discern through the air objects at a blinding distance, hear the operations of nature in her mute abodes. My senses had become so refined and susceptible after my recovery from mortal disease. Though often heralded as the architect of speculative fiction, Mary Shelley was not the first to narrate the highs and lows of superpowered characters. The further back we press in the Western tradition, the more examples we find. In the Renaissance, Edmund Spenser's The Faerie Queene introduced us to the powerful and valiant female knight Britomart, whose enchanted spear always defeats its target. The Middle Ages handed us the British Beowulf, who has the strength of 30 men in one hand grip, and the Irish Cuchulainn, capable of destroying hordes of adversaries when in the throes of his warp spasm. Just think of the Hulk's transformation, and you've a pretty good approximation of what happens to Cuchulainn. But why stop there? The ancient Greeks and Romans spun tales about powerful deities whose pettiness makes them more human than not. Poseidon, who creates tempests and earthquakes at will. Mercury, whose speed makes him the perfect message bearer for quarreling divinities. And the powerful demigod, Hercules, whose legend would be appropriated by both DC and Marvel writers centuries later. If we cast a still wider net, we find Nephthys, the Egyptian god of air, Pamola, an Abenaki bird spirit who controls the weather, and the Indian Shiva, whose third eye reduces all it sees to ash. Where does this enduring interest in extraordinary powers originate? When associated with a culture's many gods, such powers derive, at least in part, from the attempt to explain large-scale natural events outside our control, whether those events are catastrophic or advantageous. When we find such powers imprinted on human heroes, they register our desire to surpass our limitations and to escape the many dangers that threaten human existence. The more we humanize the wielder of power, the more it all becomes about us. Cultural anthropologist Joseph Campbell would suggest that this shared preoccupation with stories about the incredible across all cultures and historical periods has much to do with our desire for heroes we can emulate. A strong, quick, eagle-eyed, and fast-healing champion who successfully defends home and country, and who ends up romantically satisfied, provides the dreamer with a sizable carrot on a stick shortened by optimism. It's easier to strive, to persevere when we have a clear target, and if box office receipts are any indication, heroes with superpowers tickle the fancy of adults' imaginations no less than children's. Whenever powered heroes materialize in a far-off world of fantasy, or on another planet, their actions may astound, but they can't really inspire. When Gandalf wields magic, Daenerys Targaryen commands fire-breathing dragons, and Paul Muad'Dib predicts the future, we care less about what they're doing, which has little relevance to the small patch of Earth we inhabit, than why they're doing it. Arguably, Marvel Studios' first decade of successful films resonated so broadly with global audiences because underneath the muscles, metal armor, and mechanical doodads, the heroes made familiar decisions between running in fear or braving dangerous crises, lashing out in anger or exercising self-restraint. Strip away the pyrotechnics, and we're left with emotions and motivations like our own, just projected onto a grander stage. Back in 2000, right as 20th Century Fox and Sony Pictures were helping Marvel heroes transition to the silver screen, a budding filmmaker created exactly this: a small-scale superhero film stripped of flashy action choreography and special effects. M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable instead commits itself to a profound, rather personal question. Does the presence of someone more capable than ourselves inspire us to reach higher and risk more? Or does it embitter us and feed that victim mentality towards which we all gravitate at times? Whether it's the ability to fly, lift a building, walk through walls, or read minds, a superhero's special talent presents us with a choice. To resent how quickly their powers allow them to surmount physical constraints, or to start thinking creatively about ways we might overcome presumably impossible challenges of our own. This is the choice presented to those who suspect that David Dunn might be superpowered, including his son and a mysterious art collector with a debilitating bone disease. Now, on the face of it, the choice to insert a character with osteogenesis imperfecta, also known as brittle bone disease, into a film about superpowers might seem cruel. If an able-bodied person feels limited, or dare I say a bit disabled by the presence of a powered individual, then how might a character with a mobility impairment feel? Is such a fictional juxtaposition egregiously insensitive on the story writer's part? Or might it provide a unique opportunity for able-bodied viewers to question their own presuppositions about disability? Those who carry unquestioned prejudices about people with disabilities in the real world will necessarily bring those biases into their understanding of disabled characters in a movie. If I, for instance, assume that the many hospital visits caused by a chronic disease must jeopardize one's educational progress and result in reduced intelligence, then I will prematurely dismiss the analytical capacity and potential contributions of a fictional character with such a disorder. Compared to someone with superpowers, they must be impotent and inconsequential. If a character's reliance on a cane or wheelchair retards their progress from place to place, inhibits reaction time in a crisis, and appears to impede peripheral awareness, then surely they have less to offer when the stakes are high, constituting neither a threat nor a reliable source of assistance. Right?